All right. Hey, everyone. Welcome. I'm so glad you're here for this deep dive. Have you ever, stopped and really thought about, what your grades actually say about you?
Oh, absolutely. It's a question that's always kind of lingered in the back of my mind too, right?
Right.
Especially when we're thinking about intelligence in a much broader sense,
Right. And we've got this stack of research and different ideas here. We're going to really unpack whether grades are the end-all, be-all measure of your smarts.
Yeah, it should be interesting.
So we're not just going to define what grades are. I mean, we all kind of get that part, right? We're going way deeper than that. What do they actually tell us about what you can do, about what you're good at?
Yeah, and there are some really fascinating alternative ways to think about intelligence and how we even assess it.
Yeah.
It's more than just filling in bubbles on a test.
Totally. We want to leave you with this much broader, much more nuanced perspective on the whole thing. Let's just jump right in.
All right, let's do it.
Okay, so to start, maybe we should talk about what grades really represent, at their core.
Yeah, that's a good place to begin. I mean, when you really break it down, a grade is basically trying to quantify your performance, right? Like how well you did in a particular class or on specific assignments, that kind of thing.
It's putting a number or letter on it.
Exactly.
But like you said, it's about your performance on those specific things. And that final grade on your report card, that can come from a bunch of different places.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
It could be your scores on tests, whether you remembered to turn in your homework, how actively you participated in class discussions.
Yeah, and how much effort you put into that big project, right?
Right.
And let's be honest, sometimes even just showing up every day factors in.
Oh, yeah, attendance, for sure. But here's the thing, the question that pops into my head is, does all that really capture everything you're capable of? What about your natural curiosity? What about those super creative ways you solve problems, or when you just dive in and analyze something complex, things that might not always be obvious in a super structured exam?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it? And the thing is, grades are measuring how well you do within those specific tasks and that set curriculum. They're not necessarily capturing your innate intelligence or your ability to think outside the box.
Right. So they are useful, but maybe not the entire picture.
Exactly.
And this brings us to a really interesting point. We have to think about what intelligence actually is, because it feels way bigger than just whether you aced that last chemistry test.
Oh, absolutely.
In the research we have here, there's this psychologist, Howard Gardner, and his theory of multiple intelligences. This was so interesting to me. Have you heard of this?
Oh, yeah. Gardner's work is really influential.
So it seems like he's challenging that old school view that intelligence is all about language and logic, right? He's saying it's not just one thing, it's a bunch of different kind of independent intelligences all working together.
Like a whole toolkit, right?
Yeah.
Different strengths for different situations.
Exactly. And looking at the research, there's musical intelligence, like how you understand sounds and rhythms, spatial intelligence, so how you picture things in your mind and move them around, bodily kinesthetic intelligence, which is basically how well you use your body.
Right. And then there are the social intelligences, interpersonal, so how you understand and connect with other people, and intrapersonal, which is how you understand yourself.
And then there's even naturalistic intelligence, which is all about recognizing patterns and understanding the natural world. I mean, it's way more than just being good at math or English.
Absolutely.
So I'm curious, for you listening, think about what you're really good at. Do you see yourself in any of these? Does it feel kind of limiting to focus only on those traditional subjects, just those 2 or 3 intelligences? It seems like we might be missing out on so much potential.
Yeah, and this idea that someone who might struggle with traditional school subjects is somehow less intelligent just doesn't hold up anymore. It's not that simple.
Right, because what if you're amazing at, building things or composing music, but maybe you struggle with, algebra? Does that make you less intelligent? Or just differently intelligent?
Exactly. I think the research even had an example of a student who might be a terrible test taker in math, but they create these beautiful sculptures,
Right. Or maybe they're a gifted musician or athlete. It's like we're only seeing a tiny sliver of what they can really do.
Yeah. And that's where this idea of multiple intelligences really challenges the idea that a single grade or even your GPA can truly show your whole range of skills.
Makes you think, how much are we missing when we just focus on a letter on a piece of paper?
Quite a bit, I think.
And there's another layer to this whole thing too, right? We have to think about how this emphasis on grades impacts how we even approach learning, like what motivates us in the first place.
Oh, absolutely. That's huge. I mean, think about it. Grades can create a really competitive atmosphere where the goal becomes getting the A, not actually understanding the material.
Yeah, and I know for me, there were times when I was so stressed about getting a certain grade that I completely lost that natural curiosity and enjoyment of learning. It just became about performance, not about really getting it.
I think we've all been there.
Have you ever felt that way? You know, like you're just going through the motions to get the grade, but you're not actually absorbing it. It's like this constant pressure to measure up, and it can create so much anxiety.
Yeah, the pressure's real.
Yeah.
And the research even talks about how this can actually decrease your intrinsic motivation.
So you lose that natural drive to learn for the sake of learning.
Exactly. And it becomes all about external validation.
And that really makes you wonder about how deep the learning actually goes in that kind of environment.
That's the big question.
I mean, one of the sources even said it outright. Students may study only to pass exams instead of genuinely understanding the material. So it's like you cram, you take the test, but do you really get it?
That's the difference between surface learning and deep learning.
And there's this quote that really resonated with me. I studied for the test, but I forgot everything a week later. I've been there too, you know? It's like the information went in one ear and right out the other.
It served its purpose, but it didn't stick.
Exactly. And it's this whole idea that you might not be developing a real understanding, which leads us to a whole other set of ways to think about assessment, right? Like, are there better ways to see what you truly know?
This is where those alternative methods come in, right?
Yeah.
People are realizing that maybe there are better, more nuanced ways to assess learning.
And the research actually outlines 5 of them, which I thought was super cool.
Okay, let's hear them.
So first, we have portfolios. It's basically a collection of your work over time. So it's not just a snapshot like a test score.
Oh, I like that. It shows growth and development.
You're showing how your skills have developed, maybe over weeks or months, giving a much more dynamic view of your learning journey.
It's like a highlight reel of your best work and your progress.
Exactly. Then there's project-based learning, which I always loved. You're applying what you've learned to solve real-world problems.
So it's hands-on and practical, right?
Totally. You're creating something tangible, and it can really highlight skills like problem solving and collaboration.
It's not just about memorizing facts. It's about applying them.
Right. It's about actually using what you've learned. Then there's peer evaluation, so you're getting feedback from your classmates. It's a different perspective, right? It's seeing your work through someone else's eyes.
And it can be really valuable for developing those critical thinking skills.
Totally. And then there's self-assessment, which is really cool. It's about taking the time to reflect on your own learning process.
Oh, I love that. It's about metacognition, right?
Yeah.
Being aware of how you learn best.
Exactly. You're thinking about what you've learned, what you still need to work on, and how you feel about your progress. It encourages you to take ownership of your learning journey.
And to be more aware of your strengths and weaknesses.
Right. And finally, there are interviews or oral exams. So instead of writing everything down, you're in a more conversational setting where you can show off those verbal skills and your ability to think on your feet.
It's more dynamic and interactive.
It really is. It seems like all these alternative methods can give us a much more well-rounded and personalized view of what you can actually do.
A more complete picture, right?
Definitely. But there's another layer to this, right? Because the research also talks about these cultural and systemic factors that can play a huge role in how we think about grades.
Oh, absolutely. We can't ignore the context.
It's not just about your individual intelligence or effort. There are all these bigger issues at play.
Things that are often completely out of your control.
Like whether you have access to resources, books, tutoring, even reliable internet.
Right, the quality of teaching can vary widely too.
And what kind of support you have from your family, whether you have any learning differences that might affect your performance in a traditional classroom.
And even cultural expectations around education can play a role.
Yeah, and the research highlights this by saying the achievement gap between students from wealthy and poor backgrounds often reflects resource inequality, not intelligence.
It's a powerful statement.
Yeah.
It really makes you question the fairness of judging someone's potential solely based on their grades.
Because if you don't have those same opportunities, how can we even compare?
Exactly. And that's why it's so crucial to consider these broader societal factors.
And one more thing that really stuck with me from the research. It emphasized that success in school, like getting good grades, doesn't always mean success in the real world.
Oh, I completely agree. There are so many different ways to be successful.
Right. I mean, look at people like Steve Jobs or Richard Branson. They might not have been straight A students, but they achieved incredible things.
They had different strengths, different skills.
The research pointed out things like visionary thinking, taking risks, being resilient, and having emotional intelligence. These are all super important for navigating life, and they aren't always reflected in a traditional report card.
Yeah, and I think that's a huge takeaway for all of us. Intelligence comes in so many forms. It goes way beyond just academic success.
It's a reminder that we should value those different strengths, those different ways of being intelligent.
Absolutely. So as we wrap up, the research also gave us some helpful phrasing to use when talking about this topic, just to add some extra depth to your vocabulary.
Ooh, I love those. It can be hard to articulate these complex ideas sometimes.
Right. So one phrase is boxed in by the system, which captures that feeling of being limited by rigid rules. Like, have you ever felt boxed in by the traditional grading system?
Yeah, it's that feeling of being trapped, like it's not letting you express your full potential.
Then there's outside the box thinking, which is all about being creative and coming up with those unconventional solutions.
Like maybe your outside the box thinking isn't always rewarded in traditional assessments.
Right, because sometimes those standardized tests don't capture that kind of creativity.
Then there's a one-size-fits-all approach, which is about those methods that don't really consider individual differences. You could ask, are standardized tests truly a one-size-fits-all approach for measuring what you know?
Because everyone learns differently, right?
Exactly. We also have measure up to expectations, which is about meeting those predefined standards. So you might think about, have you ever felt pressure to measure up to expectations that didn't really fit your strengths?
Sometimes those expectations aren't aligned with your unique abilities.
And lastly, there's fall through the cracks, which is about being overlooked or neglected by a system. So you might wonder, do you think students with unique talents sometimes fall through the cracks in a system that's obsessed with grades?
Because sometimes those talents aren't recognized in the traditional classroom.
It's a lot to think about, right?
It really is.
So I think it's pretty clear that while grades are useful, they only offer a limited view of what you're capable of.
It's just one piece of the puzzle.
They focus on specific skills within a specific context, and they can miss those diverse intelligences we talked about, that intrinsic motivation, and those systemic factors that are playing a huge role in the background.
So it's about recognizing those limitations and looking beyond the grade itself.
Absolutely. We have to remember that intelligence is so multifaceted. It shows up in so many different ways, and it's not always captured in a classroom setting.
So true. And that brings us to our final thought for today.
Yes, something to ponder as you go about your day.
Think about a time when you felt like your grades didn't accurately reflect your understanding or your abilities.
Maybe you knew the material better than the test showed, or maybe you had these amazing skills that weren't being recognized.
What other ways of measuring your potential could have given a more complete and accurate picture of who you are and what you can do? It's something to really consider.
It really is. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive, everyone. We'll see you next time.
Take care.